Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Picture Book Summit podcast. We are getting so excited for this year's summit. Our theme this year is Oceans of Possibility, a deep dive into picture book craft. I'm Julie Headland. I'm one of the co-founders of Picture Book Summit, along with Emma Walton Hamilton and Katie Davis. I am so excited to welcome Deborah Underwood to the podcast today. She is one of our three superstar speakers. She is the New York Times bestselling author of The Loud Book and The Quiet Book, both illustrated by Renata Liwska, and Here Comes the Easter Cat, illustrated by Claudia Rueda. And her book, Outside In, illustrated by Cindy Derby, won a Caldecott Honor Award. And I think it was last year or maybe 2 years ago, your book, The Man Who Didn't Like Animals, won the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators Golden Kite Award for picture book text. And then there are many, many other awards. You're a highly decorated author and very prolific one. So we're really happy to have you on the podcast today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm a huge and longtime fan. And one of the things that I love about your work and your writing is while it seems like a lot of your books are very different from one another, they all deliver an experience. So whenever I pick up a Deborah Underwood book, I just know I'm in for an experience. I may not know exactly what that is yet, but and that's really the only way I know how to describe it. So you've done everything from poignant lyrical books to prose metafiction to now you've dabbled in graphic novels even, and also rhyming books and fractured fairy tales and all kinds of different books. And so you're going to be sharing with us at Picture Book Summit free diving, following your ideas below the surface. And I'm just going to quickly read the description for our listeners, and then we can just start talking about diving for ideas and letting them take us where they want us to go. A picture book writer descends deep into sometimes murky water, then, with luck, brings back a pearl, something that will resonate strongly with kids and often with adults too. I'll talk about using curiosity and emotion to dive for ideas and to figure out what form those ideas want to take. And you're also going to discuss with us how to polish that story or that pearl, if you will, to give it the best chance of connecting with readers. So the first question I want to ask you is, it sounds to me from this description that you don't necessarily know what a book wants to be when you get an idea. Is that true? And how do you navigate that without revealing, without giving us too much,
All the
before
trade secrets,
yeah.
right, right.
Well, we have to save something for the summit.
Yeah, no. Well, thank you. I'm really happy to be talking with you today. And that's such a good question because I think I experience what probably every writer experiences in that books come in different ways. I mean, some of them it's just like, I know what this is, and some of them you are just floundering around for months or years. I just pulled out a picture book that I wrote in um, 2002, I think, and it's just
Wow.
never quite found. And I keep every 5 years, it's like I'm going to try this again. So who knows, right? I want to say that I got the idea actually for the title from an email that I got. I took the Enneagram personality assessment at one
Oh,
point. Yeah, yeah. So there, yeah, yeah. For people who don't know about it, it's just a personality assessment thing, and it kind of puts you into one of 9 categories, kind of like the Myers-Briggs puts you into one of 16.
Hmm.
And I was a 4, and it seems like a lot of creative people I know are 4s. So I signed up for their daily emails. So I get these daily emails from them, which are sometimes very on the nose. Like I'll get an email that says, "What would it be like if you didn't share all of your thoughts and feelings with everyone today?" And I'm just like, I don't know, because I'm never going to find out.
Right?
But they're
Who wants
very,
to live like that?
I know, come on. Who do you think I am? But I mean, some of them are just very pointed and like, okay, this is something I could think about. But I got one. I'll read it to you. It's from the book The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Richard Riso and Russ Hudson. And it says, healthy 4s are the deep sea divers of the psyche. They delve into the inner world of the human soul and return to the surface to report on what they found. How can you tap into this talent today? And I read that and I was like, that's what picture book writers do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we dive into this big sea of emotions and experiences and realities and imagination, and we find one little thing, one tiny perfect thing that we can pull up that encapsulates an emotion or an experience or something. And we do not have the ability to pull up a whole treasure chest like a novelist might be able to. We get one. We get one. So, and then we just bring it up and hopefully it will resonate with everyone. So that it just felt so perfect. So when you said the name of the conference, I was like, well, we're deep sea divers because I really think that we are. I just think that that's the joy of writing picture books because we don't have words to waste. We don't have it's just everything stripped down, boiled down to the absolute essence is what we need to do because we have very few words in which to do it. So,
That's right.
yeah.
I love too how you said you bring back one little thing because whether you're published or pre-published, if you've written a picture book, you know that it's very hard to both whittle something down to its essence, like you said, this core that you're trying to communicate, while at the same time making sure that there's depth, that there are all the layers. And, there we go with another, deep diving metaphor. Maybe there is a whole chest down there, but you're not going to try to haul that thing up. You're just going to pick the thing that you can do something with. And I think that's one thing that you're really, really skilled at. I think that for all of your books, you can really feel the connection that you have to whatever it is you're writing about. You're not picking a trend or a hot topic or like, I'm just going to use your latest book, at least the latest one that I have, which is Tiny Garden. I did not expect to cry reading that book, but I did. It is so precious and so beautiful. And obviously, since I follow you on social media, I know about your garden that you put in during starting COVID and how much it's meant to you and this tiny little patch of land, but how enriching it is. And then how you translated that into a story. Oh my goodness. How just that one little patch of land for this little boy becomes a full oasis as if he's created a whole world for himself, you
Mhm.
know? And I think it's only through that deep connection that you can do that. And I'm
Oh,
not minimizing the amount of work that I'm sure it takes.
thank you, and I really appreciate that. You were not the first. You were not the first person who has told me that they cry. And the thing is, I still cry when I read it. I tried reading it to a class, and I'm just kind of like, okay, you can't fall apart. It really is a piece of my heart, and for me, part of that is just all of these. I'm gonna cry talking about it now. Oh my gosh! See,
I'm sorry.
no. This is just
We can talk about one of your funny books next, I
okay.
promise.
No, but just the idea that there are all these creatures that were looking for a home. I mean, I think the idea of home is so powerful, and just having all these little creatures who show up and appreciate what he's done. And honestly, for this book, there's kind of a double pearl. There's a hidden pearl that was really just for myself, and that is just the idea that adults can be so clueless about things, right? Because in the book, this boy just says, I'm going to make a tiny garden. His neighbor's like, well, that's too small for a garden. And the boy just, I'm going to make a tiny garden. And then even at the end, well, he's made this beautiful, thriving, gorgeous little garden full of hummingbirds and the tiny other creatures that were also overwhelmed by the big gardens. The adult is still like, well, I just don't see the point of this. And the kid just says, that's okay, I do. I mean, I just remember that feeling as a kid, right? It's like, how can you how can you all not understanding this thing I'm trying to tell you or whatever? And,
Right.
uh,
Because kids are so much closer to the actual magic that's in the world, you
yes,
know?
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And because
Yeah.
there is magic in the
Yeah.
world, absolutely. And kids are way closer to it and they accept it. Another pearl that was in that book for me, and I'm curious whether this was intentional or not, because sometimes, we write things and then it's received by readers, and maybe they receive something that you didn't necessarily set out to put in there, but nonetheless. Because one thing that struck me was that all of the little creatures who were coming to the garden, that the boy had created a safe space for them, a place where they felt like, oh, here is somebody who is going to accept me and who gets me and is going to, you know, eh, that to me felt, I think because a lot of my work tends to be about belonging. And that, so now I'm going to start crying. But the idea that from afar you can see a place where you just know you're going to be okay there, you can thrive there. And so I took that out of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just what a joy it is to find that place, right? I mean, I
Right?
feel
What a
like that.
relief.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny, the book that I'm rewriting for the I think I wrote it for my critique friends. This is a 7,790 whatever. But the theme there was similar. It's about this penguin who is in Antarctica and knows that he doesn't belong there and is trying to find the place he belongs, and that just so closely mirrors my experience moving to San Francisco and feeling like, okay, this is a place that I belong. And in this latest rewrite, I kind of had to let go of that theme just to see. And I mean, there's another theme. It's sort of, but I'm like, that was kind of the reason that I wanted to write that book. And so I don't know, maybe that will go someplace else if this sells, but it probably won't sell anyway. So I'll go back and put it in. But yeah, I think so many of us feel out of place. I certainly felt out of place as a child, and I feel out of place sometimes now. Just like not fitting in various situations. So just the idea that, oh, there's this place, and it's right. It's just right for me, is one of the insects says. Now I'm going to cry. The earthworm.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, yeah. And another thing that I really like, I love Andrew's just kind of quietly resolved. Like, he doesn't yell at the grown up and go, "What is wrong with you?" It's just like, this is a tiny,
Yeah. It's very,
this is
very
a tiny.
wise. Andrew in The Tiny Garden is a perfect example, by the way, of a flat arc character.
Mm,
And because I don't know, I thought I'd say that because every once in a while someone's like, "Can you give examples of a flat arc character?" And I go blank, because the only one I can ever think of is one of my all-time favorite picture books, which is The Rooster Who Would Not Be Quiet. But a flat art character is one where the main character doesn't change. They hold fast to whatever their convictions or their worldview is, but others change around them. And in the case of the tiny garden, of course, it's the patch of land, and then it's the creatures who come there. Um, and but I like that the adults don't really change, and so part of it is like he can just say, you do you,
right,
you know?
right, right.
Not everyone is going to change their point of view. And so sometimes you just have to be like, that's okay.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I hadn't thought about it in terms of that. But yeah, that is true. And I just feel like that represents a kind of honesty that I don't think I would have felt if the neighbor went over, well, my goodness, you were absolutely right about the garden. Thank goodness you did. I mean, because and it reminds me of like my book, Walter is a best, Walter has
Oh, I
had a
love,
best
yeah.
friend, where these two friends drift apart. And I think in a lot of books, they would reconcile and be back together at the end. And they're not. I mean, they don't do that. The other one just has to cope with kind of this no fault dissolution of friendship and just be left with all that sadness. Now, that's a book that I sat in my chair and I was sobbing and I wrote in about 30 minutes. And it was like one of those gift books, one of the ones
Right,
that kind of
right.
comes down. And I'm not even sure if this is a book, but it's just as opposed to something I'm submitting now that I have been working on for like 2 years with editors making suggestions and revising and then having it not go. And I mean, it's just there's so many different courses that picture books can take. But I think the idea of just being honest with kids is so important and not sugarcoating things because that's not the lived experience of a kid. Things can be difficult and adults can be obstinate. and
Right.
and it was funny when we were editing this book, there's a page where, yeah, the neighbor says, is that a garden? Asked a neighbor. It needs to be much bigger. This will be a tiny garden, said Andrew. That is far too small for a garden. This will be a tiny garden, said Andrew. And my editor said, do you want to change the second one? Just, I mean, since it's an exact repetition of the first. And I thought about it. I thought, no, I don't. I just want to be like, this will
Did
be
you not hear me the first time?
That's exactly right. I mean, it's just like a parent talking to a child, like, please pick up your toys. Please pick up your toys.
Right, right, right.
But so things like that. And it's funny, it reminded me of like the last page is, I mean, after the neighbors like, I still don't understand the point. Andrew says, oh, that's okay, Andrew said, as the ladybug gracefully landed on a tiny leaf. I do. And on that page, I read that in galleys and I thought, that gracefully feels a little indulgent to me, so I think we need to take it out. So we took it out, and then I saw it again. I'm like, I think we need the gracefully. We don't need to put it back in, but that's just kind of evidence of the kind of pearl polishing because I didn't know until I saw it back on the page. It's like I think we just need it for the rhythm, and I think it's okay to have like a little tiny indulgent word at the end to just have things land. But it's I mean, this is why picture book writers pull their hair out, I think.
Well, and this is why I'm so looking forward to your session because that level of detail in a picture book, like right down to that one word, do you put it in? Do you not? Let's try it. And that's just one word, never mind the whole idea itself. And so I want to shift gears for just a second because you do also write funny books.
Mm.
And as somebody who enjoys both writing humor and writing lyrical books, I really appreciate people who do both, like you, who do both so well. Um, and one that we used for Picture Book Summit in our add-on founders mastery sessions last year, we did 4 sessions on character, and we used Exoplanet as one for the ensemble cast. That is because ensemble cast is really hard to pull off, you know? And for those of you who haven't read the book, it does so much. It's basically the planets in the solar system. And I think that gives you some grounding in their personalities. That probably helped a little bit with the ensemble cast aspect, you know? And they notice an exoplanet hanging out. And so they write a letter welcoming. And then the exoplanet's like, but no, I'm the planet. You're the exoplanets. And then hilarity ensues as they get into this back and forth, tirade of letters about, and you sneak in a lot of facts in there about exoplanets and solar system and orbits and all of that. But really, at the end of the day, it's about perspective, you know, and what looks perfectly rational and true for you may look completely the opposite to someone else. You also write in rhyme. The the first one that popped into my head was Good Night Baddies.
Mhm.
And I know that's a bit of an older title, but I just thought it was so clever. We're always like saying goodnight to all the good things, and the villains don't get any attention, and then here's this, right? Uh, so I'm curious whether ideas come to you when you're grabbing them. Are you sort of looking for that balance between some that may be a little bit more close to the bone, or some that are more funny, or do you just accept what comes and work with it as it is?
I think I just accept what comes. I just want to go back. I am very remiss to not say that Tiny Garden is illustrated by Jax Chow. She did a stunning job.
She did.
And Exoplanet is Jorge Lacera, who also did the Fairy Tale Fixers, which is the graphic novel
Yes.
that just came out. And Juli Kangas did Goodnight Baddies, and just beautiful, beautiful illustrations. So I'm so lucky with the illustrators who I've gotten to work with. I feel like they just come. I mean, it would be nice to be able to put in in a request and say, because frankly, right now, I would really love to write a funny book, and I have one on submission, but it's not getting any traction. So I would love to write another funny book, but I don't know. I think it also just has to do with the seasons of your life too, right? After I lost my dad, I had trouble writing at all for a while, and then I'm noticing that more of my things have been lyrical and nature based, and I don't know if that is a reflection of the fact that I've been doing more birding and spending more time in nature or doing the garden, but yeah, I really don't know. I mean, I will tell you, one of those times that I went to my co-working place, like we were talking about, I've been trying to go there without any technology. And I didn't do that intentionally this time, but I got there and realized I had forgotten my computer and I'd forgotten the story I was going to revise. And I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to sit here for an hour and see what happens. And I ended up writing a funny picture book manuscript draft. So I don't know. I think a lot of it is just kind of getting out of the way, which I have been bad about doing lately. There's just so much noise in so many ways these days that I think clearing the decks to listen is a really important part of my job anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know if that's
Mm-hmm.
true for others.
Yeah, probably. Maybe some of us are better at heeding that than others, but okay, one last question, because we could talk and talk. I know I don't want the episode to end, but alas, we will have to let it at some point. Do you have an example from your body of work? And you're very prolific, which is another reason why I think we're all excited to hear from you, is juggling all those different ideas and pearls that you're bringing back up. But did you, in the theme of following what the idea wants to be or what the book wants to be once you start it, do you have an example where maybe you started something thinking it was going to be one way, and then the book decided it was going to be something else?
Well, I actually have something that I have on submission now that has gone through all sorts of various various twists and turns, and that has been. I mean, that's been partly because of outside input.
Mm,
I submitted it to an editor I trust, and she asked me to make some revisions, and then ultimately it didn't go anywhere there, and so I got submitted to another editor, and she had a way to really re-envision it, and I didn't agree with that. But then my agent said, but what if you combine this book you're working on and this book you're working on? So it's kind of, I mean, who knows? I'm not entirely sure what will happen with that, but that is definitely the example of a book that's gone in all sorts of different um, ways. Not, in terms of form, I think after the initial wrestling with it to see what's going on, I think it generally has stayed pretty true to what I initially imagined. But I'm working on something now that I think is going to be in rhyme, and I just did not want it to be in rhyme. So I just like can this please not be in rhyme? So I've spent like the last few weeks going, could I do it like this? Could I do it like this? Could I just making all of these initial forays into different forms just because with rhyme, I'm going to be very unhappy and walking around my apartment muttering, looking for rhymes for like the next month
Right, right,
probably
right,
to
right.
crank out like a little teeny thing. But alas, it is telling me that it needs to be in rhyme. And I, I do not want to hear it, but I will listen and see what happens. But it really is just like, oh, really? Do we have to do,
Come
do we
on.
have to do
Can't
this?
you give a
Yeah,
girl a break?
exactly, exactly. But you know what? I haven't written a rhyming book for a while, and it's good. It's a good skill. I just feel like it's doing a four-dimensional crossword puzzle or something. It's
Yeah.
just so hard because it's so easy to want to throw in gratuitous words that, well, maybe if I make the guy's name this, that'll rhyme. You know, and it's just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
no, you
yeah,
can't.
yeah.
No, you can't do that.
Well, you have to do it initially just to get something down and
Yeah,
then oh my goodness. Yeah, I haven't sold or even really submitted a rhyming book in a while, but I do like to write them every now and then, even just knowing that they're just for me,
yeah.
just to kind of keep the skill alive inside me because it is a very different kind of writing and it's fun sometimes, especially it's fun if you don't have the pressure, right? I wrote a rhyming manuscript about a garden gnome that gets snatched up and, I don't think that's ever going to go anywhere, but it was really fun.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you know what? Now, just thinking back on this, Finding Kindness was a book that definitely took a while to find its form. I wrote it because an editor asked me if I wanted if I could write a book about kindness because she wanted to have one on her list. And so I tried so many different things and they just all seemed a little bit too. I was just worried it could veer into the sort of sappy, and I did not want that. So I had these lyrical ones, then I had like kind of terse things, and it just didn't work. And then I came up with the idea of using sort of a bouncy rhyme and letting the illustrations tell by Irene Chan tell most of the story, and I felt like the rhyme counteracted that tendency that it might have to be syrupy or something, which I so didn't want. I figured, but that took so long. It took so long. It just,
Yeah.
it was a really, really long months and months. And the editor was very patient with me, which was lovely.
Oh,
But yeah, but I think so sometimes I think it's just a matter of, do we still say elbow grease? Is it elbow grease when you're when you're writing? But just trying. But as soon as I got that, I was like, oh, I think this is it. I think this is it. So
yeah. Yeah.
listening to our inner muse or whatever, saying, yeah,
Oh, that's
that's right.
awesome.
Yeah.
So I may have shared this with you at some point and you may have forgotten it, or I may have just imagined that I shared it with you. But part of why I'm so excited to hear more from you at the summit is because your work was so impactful when I was first starting out. And I got the Quiet Book out of the library, and my kids were still young enough at that time that I was reading picture books to them. And my mom came over, and we were all in the kitchen, and I held it up and I said, "This right here, this is why I want to write children's books." Because it was just such a perfect book. It was so unexpected in what could have been something that was just really, you think you know what it's going to be going in, and then it becomes something else. And it seems so simple, but even then I knew like this is not simple, and so I thank you for being part of my writing journey and also part of my kids' lives. They've grown up with your books and now I read them. They're off doing other things. And like it's kind of, It's kind of funny. That's what kids do. You're sort of left still, like, and they're now off doing their own thing. But I couldn't be happier that that was how I got back into reading children's books and picture books in particular was by reading to them, and that your work was certainly inspirational in that regard. So, yay.
Gosh, well, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. And yeah, I mean I think that's one of the joys of this business is like a picture book that I read when I was starting out and I was looking for, examples and reading tons and tons of picture books was a book called Frozen Noses by Jan Carr. And I just like, I love this rhyme. It's just very playful and it's very whatever. And now she's a Facebook friend and we've got
Right,
together in person when I was in New York and she was here. And it's just like, she is part of my writing DNA because I loved that
right.
book. So I mean,
Yep.
I just love the way that we can sort of trace our own stories through the stories of people whose books we've read.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to do more of that on Picture Book Summit Day. So, once again, Deborah will be joining our two other superstar speakers, Derek Barnes and Brian Lees, and that will all take place on October 3rd. And you can sign up and get all the information at picturebooksummit.com. We hope to see you at the summit, Deborah. I especially looking forward to hearing more from you, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a joy.